As a lot of you know, Les loved videos. He loved having them done, he loved being in them. He would usually task me with helping him out, and I would try to come up with the craziest ideas I could, knowing that he'd say no, but then he would say yes to the little bit less crazy idea. So over the years, we had him do things like dress up in a Star Wars costume, and he'd walk around the firm telling everybody he was Darth Vader. We put him in a pink bunny costume one year, and we even had him play ping pong in a glass boardroom while people were walking back and forth wondering what was going on. So to mark Les's stepping down from his final term as managing partner, we thought we would do one last video for him and have some people come by and tell us some stories. Some of these stories you've probably heard before, and some of them maybe not. So let's get right into it, and we're going to hear some great stories about Les's 22 years here at TORYS. And Les, this is your TORYS life. Congratulations.
I don't know what makes him tick. There's definitely something ticking in there. It's ticking very fast.
He must have a gigantic brain, I'm guessing. I really don't know how he does it. His BlackBerry or his brain together must be huge capacity.
He's always been trying to make me better. For 25 years, he's been trying to make me better. And we are often in meetings, and as we walk out of the meeting, he says to me, "Let me tell you what you did wrong in that meeting." And the first couple times that sort of took me aback, but it's been very, very helpful.
The most, when I think of Les, are those days I'd spent sitting in his office telling him some important piece of information and always knowing when the shelf life was over for me in his office, because he would immediately look down and start to make the circles, the pyramid of circles.
Because he starts right away. So as the doodling becomes faster and faster and faster, you know, your time is running out.
And the more he doodles, the more the meeting is going sideways. So my takeaway there is whenever I'm at a meeting with Les and he's starting to doodle, we have to pick up the pace.
It became almost funny when the pad came out and the circles started.
It focuses the mind when you're speaking. He's a great listener. He just knows when he's heard everything that he needs to hear.
Les is the human equivalent of the Energizer battery. Nothing can knock that man down. He just pops back up and heads forward, always forward. I don't know what will ever stop Les, but I wouldn't want to be the person to try and do it.
Our twin sons were almost born outside TORYS because I was in labor and we were going to the hospital, and Les was preparing for what he expected to be a long time waiting at the hospital, and he wanted to drop something off at the office. So we were going downtown, and I think when we hit about Queen's Park, I suggested to him that we maybe should go straight to the hospital and not go to TORYS, because I think otherwise our sons were born within an hour of our arrival at the hospital. They might have been born right on Wellington.
So my favorite Les story is when he came into my office 6 years ago and closed the door and said, "Scott, we want to hire your wife as a partner in the pension group. How would you feel about that?" And then I said, "I don't think it would be maybe a bit strange, a bit awkward to work together." And then he looked at me and he said, "Okay, well, we're going to do it anyway." And in the end, it worked out perfect. So thanks, Les.
His Canadian passport was coming up for renewal, so I took the initiative to fill out a Canadian passport renewal form as best I could. Under hair color, I had put gray, and he put not brown, question mark. And I thought, oh my goodness, do I need to be the one to break the news to him that if he were on the lam running through Pearson Airport, that they would not be looking for brown hair.
You want to know Les Viner's secret sauce? His secret sauce is, even though he has a view and he's a good leader and he's decisive, he listens. He gets the best out of people, and he does that because he's not dictating from on high.
We had a group in Toronto that was doing a trial out in Calgary, and one of our senior lawyers wasn't able to get home because she couldn't travel on Friday or Saturday. And she was really stressed about being away from her family, and Les said, "That's fine, we'll just fly the family out." And that was just as quick and as easy as that. That's a Les Viner moment.
Les ranks with the finest CEOs I've ever seen in any line of work.
He came into this job, we didn't give him a manual because we didn't know what we were doing or what we had to do. So he grew in the job exponentially.
Both
smart about law and he's very smart about business. And there aren't a lot of lawyers who can lay claim to both of those things.
Lawyers don't like being managed, and Les doesn't manage. Les really serves and has always served, and he's always felt that it has been his privilege to serve.
And when you're trying to manage hundreds of partners, everyone who thinks he's the most important person in the world, only Les could manage that well and never lose his cool.
It was fascinating to me to watch Les in action. He's a pro at building consensus, at rallying the troops.
To do that, he's had to learn to be very persuasive. So he's learned a lot of techniques of persuasion that have proven well.
Persuasion is one of his great skills. He can persuade people to move in the right direction.
I remember saying to Connor McCord, I have absolutely no interest in moving to another firm. And Connor said, Les Feiner really wants to meet with you. I didn't know Les, and I said to Connor, well, I'm really happy here, I'm going to stay here. Les called me the next day and said, we have to meet. It was the tone of his voice that convinced me to meet with him, and a few weeks later, I was sitting at a desk at TORYS.
He has a way about him of making you come around to what he would like you to come around to and make you think it's your own idea. And he does that just so naturally that you walk out of the room and all of a sudden think, did I come up with that on my own, or did Les somehow use some kind of mind meld there?
When Les approached me through a headhunter to leave my firm of 21 years, I did not even want to meet him. I didn't want to have anything to do with him, and in fact I made him drove all the way to Burlington, and I'm sure he's never driven so far west before to go meet somebody, and I did not want to listen to him. And so my body language was very negative, my arms were crossed, and I essentially told him that he was like a first date with no credibility, that I was not gonna let myself sway by having him sell me the culture of the firm. I didn't believe him.
I was shocked. It was absolutely clear within 5 minutes that Sylvie had no intention of joining us at all.
But here I am, 7 years later, so clearly he closed the deal. It was the best decision of my life. I've never had any regret, and for that I will be eternally grateful to him for having convinced me to move to TORYS.
I know Les is moving on from his tenure as managing partner at TORYS, but if I could, I would hire him on as a contract to help with our student recruitment process. He gets everyone he wants, he gets results, and he's 100% committed to the process. So every time we need a closer, we send Les in, and he always delivers.
Whoever created the saying, don't sweat the small stuff, I hadn't met Les.
He is somebody who cares about everything from soup to nuts, literally soup to nuts. For instance, when we're throwing a breakfast reception, he wants to know what mugs we're using for the coffee.
When we were planning the firm weekend in Phoenix, Arizona, there was an article that came out in a somewhat obscure paper, and this shows how much Les actually reads everything there is. There was a story about cucumbers having a listeria outbreak, and within a few minutes of that story coming online, Les was emailing the organizing committee saying, no cucumbers at firm weekend.
You might be familiar with hors d'oeuvres that are brought around at the beginning of an evening. And there's oftentimes an hors d'oeuvre that's on a spoon. Les makes sure that they're carrying around a plate to put the empty spoons on, because that really annoys him if that's not happening.
We had a recruitment kind of event, and the student had like a glass of water in their hand, and they had that moment of coming to shake my hand and what to do with the glass. And Les reaches in and takes the glass from their hand, and they thought, great, someone that maybe was serving is taking glass, and they realize it's Les, and you could see the more like, I'm giving my glass to the managing partner of the firm, and he's like, no, go ahead. But it's that idea that it doesn't matter how small the task is, anyone can chip in.
Now, some would say, does a managing partner of a firm like TORYS really need to worry about that degree of detail? I would say the results over his 22 years at the helm speak for themselves. I have never met anyone who worked as hard or cared as much about an organization as Les.
Did you say humor? So Les once said to me, let me tell you about my sense of humor. He said, my sense of humor is like a chocolate cake. Take the chocolate cake, cut it in half. The top half, well, that's me. The second half, that's all the people I interact with. And the third half, that's my sense of humor. Honestly, to this day, I have no idea what he was talking about.
He's extremely approachable and fun, and he's always got like a dad joke to throw at you.
One time he just shoved a cake on his face because he thought it'd be funny. Yeah, because that was not that long ago, so that's why it came to mind.
Every year on April Fool's Day, Les sends out an April Fool's joke, which you can never tell is a joke. It always seems very real.
I asked him, why would you be interested in someone like me in terms of opening up a new office in Calgary? And he turned with this wry smile and he said to me, to be honest, I really don't know what it is you do. But Ronnie says I need somebody like you, so here we are.
Oh, he's totally addicted to his email.
On any given day, I wouldn't be surprised if Les got about 500 emails out.
I was overwhelmed by the number of emails that I was being copied on. It was like drinking from the fire hose.
It's like he becomes a different species almost without his phone. He definitely needs it on him. He goes a little crazy without it.
I just go ahead and get on the plane. I learned not to wait for him. And they seemed to be closing the cabin door, and he just squeezed in. And I realized, of course, that because there was no internet on the plane, he was sending emails as he walked up the jetway.
His assistant at the time, Dan, and I, we had a bit of a running joke that when he traveled, we had a period of time while he was up in the air that we wouldn't receive an email. And it was like, oh, no emails. And then Air Canada put internet on the planes. Thank you, Air Canada. And so that went by the wayside and Les was right back at it.
I think that's probably one of his biggest and most amazing legacies is when he took over, we were a one-city office, and we've grown to include New York, Calgary, Montreal, and now Halifax. And that expansion has just been part of his vision to make the firm bigger and better and stronger, and that will be his lasting legacy for sure.
From all of us in Calgary, thank you, Les.
From all of us in the New York office, thank you, Les.
From all of us in Halifax, thank you, Les.
De la part de toute l'équipe à Montréal, Les, un grand merci. From all of us in the Montreal office, thank you, Les.
Congratulations, Les. I look forward to building on your legacy. Thank you for everything.